Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode number 2 of the Nothing for Nothing Leaves Nothing podcast. I am your host, Lewis, and let's get to it. All right, everybody, and welcome back. So, today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about your host, which is me. Just giving you a background about myself, who I am, kind of what I'm about, and, how this podcasting thing is supposed to go. So, name is Lewis. I am the father of a wonderful little girl. I am a 10-year Navy vet. I was a corpsman while I was in the Navy. So, Hooyah Navy. Spent time with the Marine Corps, which is probably one of my favorite times from when I served. So, shout out to all my Marines out there, all my devil dogs getting in all kinds of mischief because that's just what Marines do, and I love them for it. More so about me. Have an older brother, have a younger sister. Both my parents are still living through the grace of God. Family is close knit for the most part. I would say more so with the cousins and stuff like that. From my dad's side of the family, we're very, very close knit. We kind of operate as our own little unit. Everybody has their own little quirks and ways they do things, but at the end of the day, when the stuff hits the fan, we all get together and do what we need to do is come together as a family. But about me, let's see, I was born and raised in Jersey City, New Jersey. I left Jersey when I was about 15. From there, I moved to Virginia. From Virginia, is kind of that's where that next phase of life kind of kicked in. Next phase of life being, going in sophomore year of high school. From there, progressing into college, which shout out to Lewisburg College in North Carolina. Went there for 2 years. Also, another shout out to ODU. I went there for about a semester and a half. That was the last stop before joining the Navy. But yeah, man. I mean, like I said, between the two states, I call both of those home. Each one of those hold a special part in my heart. Currently, now I'm in the great state of Texas. Yay, yeehaw. But yeah, man, Texas is kind of like that new that settling ground, kind of where you put your grassroots and kind of where you want to push forward. Raise my child. You know, set my life on that. As they say, that final career path and just moving forward out there. But when it talks about Virginia and New Jersey, Jersey always holds a special part of me because that's pretty much developmental years. From baby to about 15 years old. A lot of experiences there, a lot of friends, a lot of folks that I went to school with. We were in school from, I mean, kindergarten all the way till 8th grade. So those are some lasting friendships. Some special folks, man. Special folks. Special, not in a bad way, in a good way, because like I said, those lasting friendships, you just hold on to those. So any chance I get back to Jersey and I can, track some folks down and catch up with them, it's always a fun experience just to kind of sit back and reminisce. When it goes to Virginia, Virginia was a little bit weird, man. A lot of transitions going on then at the time. High school was cool. Made my buddies in high school, friends that people I'm still friends with now. The Virginia crew, don't keep too much in contact with them. Like I said, thank God for Facebook, right? That's how you keep up with a lot of people and folks in this day and age, via the social media. But yeah, man, just two different dynamics. But when I go back to Virginia, and I haven't been back to Virginia in a while, it's always good to kind of travel around in the city, see some things, see how the city is developed, see new things in the area, how things are progressing, what has changed from the last time you was there. That's always fun when you take a trip back home, when you're not, currently living in that state. So, yeah, Virginia and Jersey, man. Jersey's always just that wild beast, man. That every time you go back, you're just trying to find a new way to tame it. But it could also be a little sketchy at times too. My mom's been on the same block, God knows how many years now, man. I mean, hell, you go back. My grandmother owned a house on that block at one point, and we all lived there. So that street has a lot of memories and a lot of fun times, a lot of ass whoopings also, or butt whoopings. Sorry. Don't know if we want to keep it PG or not. But developmental times, man. Like I said, just being around family, just living that family life. Playing on playing outside. At back in those times, I'm only 38, but in those times it was a little bit different because you could go outside and play and not have to worry about, you know, the things that you see in today's world, right? Like, were those things out there at the time? Yeah, but were they as publicized or was it as rampant? It might have been, just that it wasn't as, blaring in your face as the things today go. So that's always a change and a different dynamic when when you sit there and look at it. But yeah, man, going outside and playing. Mom telling you can play until the light comes on. You got to come in the house. Those old classic stories, in the neighborhood. But it was true. But Jersey City was a little different in a sense of, as opposed to Virginia, in the sense of, like, you're in a city, man. So, like, in a city, things are very close. Like, if you live in the cities, New York, New Jersey, and just how the streets and blocks are broken down, everything's close right next to each other. I mean, like, it's nothing to be like, okay, hey, I'm gonna go see your friend. The friend lives 2, 3 blocks away. You walk over there with no problem, right? Not a concern or worry that anything's gonna happen to you. Just go catch up with your friends. Going to the store, same thing. I think the funny thing when you think about culture and how culture's portrayed at times, like, most of the corner stores were owned by either a Puerto Rican or a Dominican. A lot of times people end up putting them together. No disrespect to either or, but that's just kind of how it was. And until you get older and mature and learn things, that's kind of what you roll with. But you roll with it in the sense of, like, every corner store was called Poppy's, right? It was a one-stop shop, right? And that was the cool thing about being in, living in that time. How everything was so, it was just there, right? Did you need to run to the supermarket? Yeah, at times you need to go, do your major food shopping. Like, a cookout's coming, you got to get all your major stuff, your meats, food, drinks, and all that kind of stuff. But your quick stops, man, going to the store, man, go to Poppy's, and literally one-stop shop. You can go there, get your breakfast, and get your lunch, and get your dinner. Um, I remember walking to school in the morning sometimes, and you stop in there to get a butter roll. At that time, it was like you can get a half a roll and a cup of tea, and that was like $1 or $1.50. Nowadays, God only knows what that costs. It might cost you about almost $20, but it was just good times, man. Like, it was just one of those things that it was part of the ethos of how you grew up. I remember some fun things of sometimes and then as we got older, and when I say we, I'm talking about family members, cousins, and stuff like that. Where Sunday morning, man, my grandmother, got rest her soul, man, Big Rose, Rosetta Ling, that lady was special. She was special in the sense of she kept everything together, right? Like, she was the glue, and she's my mother on my father's side, so my dad's mom. She was it, man. She was the one, right? Obviously, people have their flaws and things like that, but you know, when you look at somebody after they've passed on, and you go back and look at their life, man, you see all the good things, right? You see some of the bad too, because that's just part of it. But you focus on a lot of the good things that they did, the things that they instilled in you, the lessons that they taught. And I mean, if you take my cousins and you lay us all out, everybody has a piece of her, right? Everybody has something from Big Rose. Yeah. But getting back to that, like I said, those corner stores, man, like Sunday morning to come, my mom's and auntie, you know, getting ready for church, and God forbid the knee highs or the pantyhose rip, you got to make a quick run to the store. Hey, go grab me some sheer black. I think that was always the main one that they would grab. That, and they was ready to roll. So growing up, church was in New York. Shout out to Memorial Baptist Church, in Harlem. Man, that place, another place, a lot of memories. Just set the standard for development and who you become, right? Obviously, from a black community standpoint, right? Like, a lot of our core comes from we've all grown up in the church, right? Now, about everybody hit around that, you start hitting the teenage years, kind of want to rebel, tired of going to church, tired of choir and ushering and all day services and things of that nature, right? But at the end of the day, the things you learn from that still holds, right? It's still something that's embedded in you. Like, you learn those lessons and you go through those things. You don't forget them, right? Sometimes people do, but for the most part, you don't forget them because they become a part of who you are, right? I remember being in the choir, and everybody's always go to, especially people come back home, meet your fam, and they're like, "Oh, remember when you used to sing in the choir?" And I never really sung when I was in the choir, which is kind of the weird thing when everybody talk about it. Every time I sung, I cried. Every single time, right? I don't matter what was going on or how much I try to prep myself. Like, I got it today. Today I'm gonna do it, man. I'm gonna be good, no problem. Every time I tried, what happened? Boom, bust out crying, right? So, and I was always the runt, right? So super short. So every time I went up to sing, they gave me this little box that I had to stand on, so the rest of the congregation could see me, right? And it was just a thing, man. I remember going back for my grandmother's funeral, and the pastor of the church, Reverend Renee, she pulled out that box, man, and I was like, man, you talk about some memories, right? Like, it just gives that cause for pause when you just kind of take a step and just reflect, right? Like, how many times we get yelled at running through the church halls, right? Or you're supposed to be in Sunday school and you run around doing some stuff you're not supposed to be doing in the church, and then you get caught. And back in those days, man, like I said, I see back in those days like it's years and years ago. Still in line from Charlemagne to God. I was born in 1900s, so it was weird, man. Like, the correction, like, it was a community thing. Like, it was nothing for an elder that somebody that knew the fam, knew you, knew your mom, your dad, your aunties, or whatever, to correct you when you did something wrong. And it was never an issue, right? It was never like you did something wrong, got corrected, and then somebody's going to try to fight the person. Why are you scolding my child, or why are you saying this to my son? That wasn't the case, man. Like, when things happen, like, you was policed. Like, it wasn't too far fetched for you to even go back to when you were back in the neighborhood on the block, and you might be 2 3 blocks over, same thing. You out there doing something, and somebody's gonna see you. Somebody might know an auntie, know an uncle, or whatever, and then there you go. Now you're getting the double whammy because they're gonna get you, and then when you get home, you're gonna get it again. So, but you think about that, man, and it's like it's one of those things where I look at society now, and it makes you question, like, where's the discipline, right? Where's the how do you say it? The structure. Where's the structure, right? Because nowadays, man, like, you see videos online all the time going viral. You know, kids talking craziness to athletes, hosting events, or just people talking crazy to just in general to adults, man. And it's like there's a lack of respect there. I mean, don't get me wrong. As you grow up and you getting a little tough or grown about yourself. You might try to challenge or buck the system every now and again, but trust me, it was always somebody there to put you back in your place. And like I said, the same thing was from where we was at church. But getting back to growing up in the church, man. Like, man, I think a lot of it stemmed from my grandma, like I said, and like I said, she was that woman at church, man. Everybody knew Rosetta, Mama Rose, right, or Mama Ling as they called her. Head of the pastor's aide, so she was always there with pastor, make sure he had what he needed, he was good. Make sure pastor's wife was good to go, family and everything was taken care of and good to go. That was just her thing, man. Like, she was just that person in the church, and it was known, but it was like shared across the board. So, like, I remember Sunday, they have the church events or the anniversaries or whatever, and I remember my mom, my aunties, man, down in the kitchen with the other folks from the church just grinding, getting it. They show up to church with their sneakers and put their white socks over their stockings or whatever, or break out the house shoes and the aprons, man, and they was doing their thing, right? Making sure everybody in the church was fed, everybody was good to go. Now for the kids, we're like, man, we just ready to get out of here. We ready to go back home, whatever the situation was. But those experiences, man, it was a part of growing up. It was good memories. Like, the commute to church, that was a whole adventure in itself, right? My grandmother had an old Buick 4 door. Now, this car, I've seen this car several times over the past couple of years. And every time I see it, I always send a picture to my cousins because I'm like, man, you gotta check this out. Remember this car? and they see it, and the first thing we look is like, how the hell did we all fit in this car, right? But we did, right? Load up in that car, man, and off we went. You know, it was nothing for us to be. We was lapped up, making our way to church, right? But guess what? Everybody went to church. And then if we weren't doing that, it was a community effort. Everybody was getting on the public trains, right? Catching the bus to from Bergen Avenue or from Jackson Avenue to Journal Square, taking a PATH train through the old World Trade Center, and then from there catching the train and then heading into 116th Street to go to church. So experiences, man. It was good times. Good times. Those things that last and you just hold on to. And sometimes I look at that, right? You think about those experiences going to church and commuting and having those times. And sometimes you miss them, right? I have a lot of days where I sit and reminisce and I'm like, dang, man, why can't I get back to those days, right? And not so much those days, but just the time with family, right? Like kicking it with the cousins and, you know, all crying together about being stuck in a car and going to church or having to usher or having to go to choir rehearsal or whatever the situation was. But, as you get older, life moves on, man. It changes and grows. Like my cousins now, they all have kids and some of their kids have kids, but it's just one of those things, man, where you just sit back and look, you're like, wow, like time just continues to go and move on. So you hold on to those memories because you cherish those, right? Those are memories with your family, man. You won't become who you are meant to be without those experiences, in my humble opinion, right? Like being around my family and having my family help raise me and go through situations and be there to lean on when situations happen. I wouldn't change that for the world, right? That's invaluable information, as they say. And even now, as an adult, we might not all get together as frequently as we want to, but like I said, social media, right? Facebook, stuff like that. Like we can video chat, get on the video, laugh, joke, cut up, just be foolish like we do with our aunties on the phone and they just sitting there laughing and giggling because they're like, y'all a bunch of fools, right? But that's family, man. That's what you want. That's what you want to hold on to. That family, that community. That's what makes, I would say, I mean, if not for anybody else, I would say that makes what makes me me. And that's kind of one of the things that is much, being at a distance of not being in the same state as them, raising my daughter. Man, the fact that I'm raising a daughter trips me out sometimes, right? But I take it day by day, right? She's smart, she's funny. The scary thing is she looks just like me and she has a lot of my demeanor and attitude, which I don't know how good that is, right? But she has a lot of strong women in her lineage, right? From her mom's side, from my side, right? She comes from a background of a lot of strong women, right? So that's something that you always look to nurture and just make sure to guide her, as best we can to make sure she can be the person that she needs to be. But yeah, man, it's good stuff. Another thing I want to touch on in this episode when it comes to me, and actually pretty much what this podcast is, looking forward. This will be a safe space, right? I appreciate you guys giving me a safe space to kind of express myself. I might ramble a little bit from time to time, but it's just more so just voicing some things off my brain and getting some things out there in the ethos in a sense. But yeah, man. I mean, as we continue to get this podcast to grow, continue to get it out there for you guys to take in, absorb, you know, be free and be open. If it's a certain topic you want to talk about or have questions about, as we go, this is kind of a general podcast. It's not streamlined for sports or, any one particular lane. It's kind of open. It's kind of general. It's like a general podcast. But at times I would like to touch on some of those things. I might have some views and opinions on some things. People may agree, some people may not. And if they don't agree, that's fine. I think today's society, if there's anything that is missing, is people feel like they can't disagree, right? In order for you one to grow, you must understand different viewpoints other than your own, right? That's the only way for you to grow and to become a better person, right? If you stay closed-minded or you take one idea and you keep that idea as that's the sole idea and that's the sole fact of it, it's kind of hard to be able to intertwine and interact with folks, or just to be able to live in the world that we live in. Things are forever changing. Things are constantly on the up and down, right, and evolving. However, we're still all people, man. We're all God's children at the end of the day, right? So just like if you have a brother or sister, and there are times when you and your brother and sister don't get along, and y'all arguing with each other, and I can't stand you, you can't stand me, and all that kind of stuff. Just look at that, man. It's the same thing in the world, right, that we live in. So heed that. Take your time. You might disagree with somebody, but try to take time to understand where that person's coming from. That's a key point, I think, in society that is lacking. And for us to continue to grow as a society, it might be some of the things from, looking at the past, man, looking back in history, and not saying everything in the past was good, but some aspects of it, it might be time to start bringing some of those things back to the forefront, because it's just one of those things that's needed, right? So I will say, in closing of this podcast, thank you guys for listening. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment. Like I said, this is a new podcast. We're trying to grow and see where it takes us, man. Podcast won't be too long. Try to keep them, pretty straight and to the point. Like I said, you might get a little rambling from time to time, as these podcasts are coming together. But as you guys comment and stuff like that, like, reach out. Let us know what you want us to talk about. Let us know if you want us to broach some things. And the next podcast, episode 3, we're gonna talk about some Uber and Lyft experiences, man. Talk about some stories, some experiences I've had while doing that for a little bit. Might touch on some of the military stuff, just some things I experienced, working in a hospital, a couple of cases and situations that happen. Have to keep some of that PG, because, some of these folks might still be working or still be floating around out there. But definitely from the stuff from Uber, man, like, I think you guys will enjoy that piece. But yeah, thank you for listening to episode 2, and we look forward to having you guys back for episode 3. You guys have a good one.